What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Sports Talk on Tap video. We're here. You can find daily videos Monday through Friday covering all the four major sports leagues, whether it be NFL, NHL, MLB, or NBA. We're here to talk games, news, highlights, all that fun stuff. Happy Friday to everyone who celebrates end of the week. You know, the grind is almost done and we can relax. But with that being said, in today's episode, we figured we'd do something fun for the NFL, because it is like the last day or so, where content will just kind of be random, no training camp news, all that fun stuff. But we figured we'd give our best player at each position entering the 2024 season. Obviously, if someone has a career year or something, all this can change, or down year for some of these guys. But Nick, I'm curious, will we have similar? Will we have differently? But at the end of the day, if we don't have the same quarterback, then I will officially end this podcast.
I don't know your list, but I wrote in two positions that I am willing to put a lot of money on that will have the same thing.
Yeah. So
if we want to start with quarterback,
it's the most intriguing position, but Patrick Mahomes has made it where it's just not anymore. There's not really much to say. 3-time Super Bowl champion, back-to-back Super Bowl champion, 2-time MVP, does it all. Even without the best weapons like last year, his team leading the league in drops, he still finds a way to get it done. 11-plus wins every season. This guy's a wizard, and until proven otherwise, this guy's the best quarterback in the NFL by a mile. And anyone in the YouTube who thinks otherwise, you're just an idiot. And with that being said, Nick, I think we enter finally a position where it won't be that easy. Running back. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways I think people could go about this, but I'm going to stick with a guy. If he's healthy, if he plays the way he's played before this injury, I'm still sticking with Nick Chubb as the best running back in the NFL. If he's healthy, and if that injury, he overcomes and is still like 80% of that same dude he was the best running back in the NFL, in my opinion. And I'm still going to stick with him for my list.
Okay. That's a pick I didn't think you were going to make, but I like it. Another guy I'm picking is another guy who's kind of dealt with injuries, but showed last year how good he is when he's healthy. I just have Christian McCaffrey. I think his, do-it-all ability makes him one of the most not just valuable running backs, but valuable players in the league. He was getting, MVP talks late, which you never see from running backs. Like, shout out Adrian Peterson. It took him being 9 yards away from the all-time record for him to get in the MVP talks. So,
yeah, it's tough because, he probably is, the best do-it-all based on production. I just did it based on, strictly, running back, running the football. But McCaffrey's a do-it-all threat. He's kind of like Deebo Samuel in a way. He kind of is like a hybrid. He can play whatever you want out of the slot. If you were to ask me who I'd have on my team, probably Chubb or McCaffrey, I'd take McCaffrey just because of his do-it threat. But I still respect Nick Chubb because when he is healthy, 1,500-plus yard seasons. But McCaffrey, 1,000-plus in each. The dude's a dog, special hybrid that makes the 49ers so special with him and Deebo. Basically can both do it at each position, which makes them unreal.
Yeah, I'm not mad at your pick at all. I try to draft Nick Chubb every single year in fantasy. He's been my fantasy guy the past 5 years. So
yeah,
I was devastated last year when he got hurt.
Oh yeah, no, that was a brutal injury. But if that it is assuming if he's back to his normal self, which I'm rooting for. But if he isn't, then obvious answer is McCaffrey. Next position, even if I wasn't biased, I'd pick this guy. But since I am a Vikings fan, I'd run through a brick wall for this guy. Give me the Jets, Justin Jefferson, best receiver in football, in my opinion.
Yep, me too. He got paid all that money this offseason for a reason, and he earned every penny of it. Last year, he was, he only played 10 games, and he still was over 1,000 yards. So kind of goes to show the pace he was on last year. He very well could have gotten to 1,800 yards.
With Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins starting half the games.
With bad quarterbacks.
Yeah, and he really only played 8 because the Raiders game, Josh Dobbs gave him a hospital ball. He went out first quarter. Chiefs game, he got injured, only had 20 yards. So the games he played start to finish, I think he was averaging 150 yards. It was absurd.
Yeah, easily. He was. I know people were talking about Tyreek Hill being on pace for 2K, but Justin Jefferson was right there with him.
Yeah, and that's why I'm not like scared to pick him up high in fantasy because I think he proved last year with Nick Mullins. I think Sam Darnold, as long as you just feed him the ball, he'll catch it. A lot more picks, but he'll still put up his yards. And Tyreek Hill, shout out him, he's a dog. But at the end of the day, not the best receiver in football. With that being said, we moved to tight end, where we're on a little streak of people who are on the movie Receiver. Give me George Kittle. I think best run blocking tight end still, or at least top of the list, and still can catch the ball really high level yards after catch. My opinion, Kelsey's slowed down a little bit, but he's still really good. But overall, I think George Kittle's just a do-it-all guy. I love Kittle, so I'm going Kittle.
I also have him, and largely due to his run blocking ability, I think it's something that goes over so many people's heads when thinking of best tight end in the league. Like you think of guys like Sam Laporta or TJ Hawkinson or Travis Kelce, who are incredible at, catching, running with the ball, scoring, doing all sorts of things. But George Kittle has that, and he has the ability to almost be an extension of the offensive line, which is huge in San Francisco's run game. And that's why they're, one of the top running teams in the league every single year. It obviously helps when you have Christian McCaffrey and some incredibly talented offensive linemen, but tight end plays a huge role in how you run the football because you can't run outside without him.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's the dirty work he does that makes the 49ers so special. And like you said, McCaffrey, it's him being really good, but also George Kittle and him creating some great run separation, and he's really good at catching the ball and making yards after play. So he's the big engine that runs that 49ers offense, arguably the most important player on that offense to make the run game going, the pass catching game going. And for him to stay healthy these last couple of years has been good because that's always been the biggest question mark with him. But, when he's healthy, he's the best in football. Next, we move up to just O-linemen. Different ways we could have done this, but we're going to stick with just the best. You had to pick one guy to lead your unit, leader of men for next season. Nick, I'm curious where you went with this, so I'll let you go first.
Okay. This one's pretty vanilla, easy guess, but until I see a fall off, I'm still going to pick him. I have Trent Williams just because like the schemes that Kyle Shanahan draws up for him where he literally makes plays not designed for Christian McCaffrey, but designed for Trent Williams to be the lead blocker. That kind of speaks volumes into how good of a overall offensive lineman he is. And doing it at his age, is he close to 40 years old? I know he's up there in age, and he's still, it seems like he's gotten better since his days in Washington. So that's just insane to me to think. But until I see a fall off, I got to go Trent Williams.
Yep. For me, my answer is going to be Trent Williams, but the gap, it's not even that like Trent Williams is slow down. He's still the best tackle in football, and I'll have him as my high. But it wouldn't for me, right behind him is Penei Sewell. I think Penei Sewell is already right there. He's one amongst the best right tackles in football, while the Lions' offensive line is the best in football. Obviously, they have some other plays around there, but I really love him. And also, I don't even think it's really a non-biased pick. I also have like Christian Darrisaw just a little bit behind him as well, just because those two tackles are so special. And they ranked, PFF system, some of it's good, some of it's bad, but I think they're pretty good at just judging offensive linemen and what they do in their pass rush, win rate, all that fun stuff. I think all three of them are really dogs, but Trent has done it for the longest. So got to give him that respect. But those two, I'd say, are some close behinds and just best tackles. And obviously, I think that's the most important position because, centers, I think like Creed Humphrey of the Chiefs is really good. He's amongst some of the best, just pure offensive linemen. But, I think tackle's the most important because you got to protect your QBs blind side. So I'm going with my dog, Trent Williams, as well.
Yep.
With that being said, we move into, I believe, defensive line.
Yeah, we can go D tackle and then defensive end if you want.
All right. So D tackle, Nick, who'd you cook up?
I have Chris Jones because he's been, almost defensive player of the year the past 2 years. He's gotten, I think tremendously better in the past 2 or 3 years, and he was without him, because I know last year there was that big, drama going on with the contract, and they lost week 1 without him, and the Lions kind of surprised them in Kansas City. Everyone was like, we need Chris Jones back.
Yeah.
And he was one of the main reasons they won the Super Bowl. So for, those reasons and many, many more, he is, in my opinion, the best.
D tackle. It's not a debate for me either. Chris Jones, once Aaron Donald hung up the cleats, there is no debate.
Exactly.
So, with that being said, Chris Jones is my pick as well. I'm pretty vanilla. We're kind of on a streak of the same. I think the only difference we've had so far is running back.
Yeah.
But with that being said, let's move into defensive end where, Nick, who are you rocking with?
This one was tough because, one, it's just like it's such a competitive position. There's so many good ones, but also I didn't know if the player I chose qualified, but I looked up, and it seems like that is his main position. So I do have TJ Watt as the best defensive end. I know he can kind of be ruled as an outside linebacker, and he does, make depth.
He's mostly DN for me.
He's a pass rusher. So we could have almost called this position a pass rusher. We could have said like D tackle's interior pass rusher and exterior pass rusher, however, but that's what TJ Watt's known for. He's known for getting almost 20 sacks every single season. So as good as Myles Garrett is, he was like right up there with him. I was kind of back and forth, but I just think TJ Watt I can't, pull off the numbers off the top of my head, but the Steelers defense when he's on the field is like miles better than when he's off the field.
Yeah. Can't blame me there. I am going to go with Myles Garrett, though. I think what he did for Cleveland leading them to the best defense in the league. And I think Myles Garrett's impact in the run game is just as much felt as in the passing game. He's really good in the run game. And that's why Cleveland defense is so formidable to play against, just because they're so frustrating. You can't run the ball on them. And then when they're getting after you, it's really hard to pass. And just seeing what he did against some of these elite QBs this past year, holding Joe Burrow and the Bengals to no points in the first game, and just kind of throughout the whole season, really putting them on their back. And, obviously to have number one defense, you got playmakers all around, but to be the leader of that team, get, consistently 15 plus sacks every year, being a stud in the run game. So because when was the last time you've heard of like a team run on the Cleveland Browns? It basically never happens.
Right.
And a huge reason for that is Myles Garrett. But him and TJ Watt are like a 1A, 1B. So it's kind of like just picking bones. And, you can't really discredit one to emphasize the other. You just have to say, oh, well, TJ Watt had half a more sack or, something like that, right, to say who's better, or, Myles Garrett, something. But, overall, both are really studs, both in the same division. So it's always fun to see them go at it, even on opposite sides of even though they can't play 1v1 in the field. That would be an interesting matchup. Both guys are studs, though. But I'm just going to rock with Myles. Just, okay. I'm a Cleveland Browns guy somewhat, just because Stefanski's there. I root for him. But also not a Cleveland Browns guy because of Deshaun Watson. So,
that's a different category.
Yeah, that's a different category. I think not even Cleveland Browns fans like Deshaun Watson.
Exactly.
You can still root for the team. With that being said, Nick, we move into linebacker. And what are you rocking with here?
This one, I know maybe it took you a little bit more time to come up with, but this was actually one of the first positions where I said, like, this is an easy pick for me. I have Fred Warner. I think he's far and away the best linebacker in the league, with not only his tackle ability in the run game, leadership ability, his pass coverage ability is unreal. He can lock down so many of the best tight ends in football. That's kind of what sets him far and above from me. Is he literally does it all. And I know there's other guys like Roquan Smith who are incredible linebackers, and I'm taking nothing away from them. I would want them on my team any day of the week. I just think Fred Warner is he's like, if you want to build what a current day linebacker is, I think you would look at Fred Warner for a lot of the, pieces when it comes to pass coverage, tackling, just football knowledge. And it's crazy to think he was a 4th or 5th round pick. Like he kind of just snuck into the 49ers and became a top linebacker in the league. So
Yeah.
That's my pick. I'm just a big Fred Warner fan too. Maybe I have some Madden bias because I use him a lot in Madden. I love using him. So maybe that's, some of my bias, but you don't get those 95 overall plus ratings without being a top dog.
Yeah. Fred Warner's in my top 3. But what I saw what Roquan did to that Ravens defense makes me slightly higher on him than maybe you, just because that defense went from already like a top 10 year to the best defense in football, and Roquan has looked like the best linebacker in football like since he's went to the Ravens. But I didn't go with Roquan either. I'm going with a guy that is a hybrid superstar pass rusher, but is considered a linebacker and plays a good amount. He can drop back, do it all. I'm going with Micah Parsons of the Cowboys. I think he's the best because I looked at the position. He's counted as a linebacker, so I'm just going to rock with it. And I want a spot for him on this list because just the way the Cowboys use him in so many ways, versatile, can get you 15 plus sacks, can drop back, be super effective in the run game as well. I think he's just the definition of maybe a do-it-all. I think Fred Warner, probably better in pass coverage, but that really isn't Micah's game. Micah, I think, is more of a pass rusher, drop back, can get some stops, can be in the run game. And the way the Cowboys use him, this isn't, a top 5 defense without him, and they're always up there. And, they do have some big time names like Trayvon Diggs, Deron Bland, but those guys, they're either kind of on or off. They're either super on, and when they're on, they're the best defense in football, and they're getting like 3 pick sixes a game. But when they're off, they really rely on Micah Parsons and that defense to get a stop up front. And Micah, for the most part, has the ability to do that. I think overall, for me, I would give him just the slight edge over those two, just because of that pass rush ability he has.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, before we move on to the next position, I'm kind of curious to think, because obviously coaching is a huge factor into how he plays. So do you think Micah Parsons is going to take a step back now that he lost Dan Quinn, who I think was...
He's going to take a step forward. I think
really?
Mike Zimmer is the most underrated defensive coaches of the 2010s. He led the Bengals to great AFC North defenses, and people forget, but Cowboys fans or any Cowboys fans listening to this that are curious about Mike Zimmer, that guy led that Vikings defense from worst to 16th his first year to 2017, where they were the number 1 defense in all of football. He knows how to use different guys at different positions, and some of those linebackers like Anthony Barr, who's nowhere near that special talent of Micah Parsons, but kind of reminds me of the guy that could be a pass rusher and just versatile in many ways. Mike Zimmer just knows how to use them without the biggest names, because Nick, when you think of number 1 defense in 2017, and if you had to say players on the Vikings, it's not really eye popping, the guys that were leading that team. It was guys like Xavier Rhodes having career years. Danielle Hunter was kind of just like a second year player at that point, third year. So very young, not even at his prime yet. So Mike Zimmer made it work without, the pieces that you would think. And now that he gets Micah Parsons, I can only imagine the ways he's going to use him. I think Dan Quinn's also a great defensive mind, so maybe not too much better, but he definitely, I don't think, will get any worse, because Mike Zimmer was more of the most underappreciated offensive minds in this league, and led a number 1 defense with Case Keenum to 13 wins. So he knows how to coach, and he'll definitely he's never had a talent like Micah Parsons before. So I'm super excited to see how he uses them.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to clip that and come back to it if Micah Parsons has a defensive player of the year.
Well, do you think Micah Parsons is going to regress?
I believe you with, obviously, the proof is in the pudding, as they would say with Mike Zimmer and what he does with defenses. So when you give him, a brand new toy like Micah Parsons, where literally he can probably have him play any position inside the box, obviously he's not playing corner, but Micah, you could argue Micah is the most athletic defensive player in the league. and you can literally have him do anything. So maybe it's tough to say because like you just said, guys like Danielle Hunter, they weren't, absolute superstars and carrying that defense, but maybe, he draws up the schemes where Micah Parsons draws so much attention that other guys on the Cowboys are having insane years, like DeMarcus Lawrence. Maybe DeMarcus Lawrence has a resurgence just because of Mike Zimmer.
Yeah, no, it'll be very interesting. I do think Mike Zimmer's like last 2 years, his defense got a little bit, figured out just because I think, obviously film's out there, but that Vikings defense did lose a lot of talent. Like, Danielle Hunter was injured those last 2 years. Everson Griffin wasn't in the league anymore. And they kind of, were starting to get figured out. But with that being said, he knows how to coach, and he did an interview where, this last 2 years, he hasn't been in coaching. He's kind of just been watching. I think that'll be good for a helpful guy because he is an older guy. But just being able to kind of look back and, kind of just see the way the NFL and it is and adapt to that. So I think he'll be even better suited for it than he was fresh out of getting fired. So I'm really excited to see how he does. And obviously, I think, in my opinion, still top 3 head coach in Vikings history. Really underrated head coach of the 2010s. Okay. With that being said, though, we'll move into the back end where we focus on cornerbacks and safeties. Nick, I guess we can do cornerbacks first.
Yep.
Where are you going with this one?
This one for me was kind of, I did a little bit of research, but overall,
it's not bland and dry as it used to be. It used to be Jalen Ramsey.
Right, exactly. I looked at guys, and I'm looking at all these top 10 lists, and people have guys like Jalen Ramsey at like 5 or 6, and I'm like, whoa, did cornerbacks really, maybe it's just his injury history and everything, because you're right, it used to be one set guy like Darrelle Revis, obviously was forever ago, but then Jalen Ramsey for a while. Mm-hmm. But I have Sauce Gardner just because he's so young and he's already so talented. Like, he was incredible his rookie year. Maybe he didn't take a gigantic leap forward last year, but when quarterbacks aren't throwing the ball at him, so he's not getting 8 or 9 picks, people might say like, oh, he's not doing anything, but he's literally just locking down the other team's number 1 threat. So his ability to do that at such a young age, I think he's going to just keep getting better every year. With a defensive guy like Robert Saleh is going to keep improving on him. So I still think Sauce Gardner is probably the best overall corner in the league. He's also a great tackler. He's really big. He's like 6'4", which is crazy because he really can match up on anybody. So that's my pick.
I'm disappointed in you, Nick, because I thought we'd have different answers for this, but I thought Sauce Gardner too. I think there's a big reason why he's already in 2 years. A lot, like you said, a lot of people don't throw at him. He put the league on notice his first year. And like you say, the stats may show, this completion, he may not have the best, passer rating thrown against, but QBs don't throw a lot his way. And I think he'll be even due to just get better just by Aaron Rodgers and the defense being not on the field 40 minutes a game and being worn out. But even then, because he played at a high level when, December, when they've been on the field with, Zach Wilson, or who was their backup, Tim Boyle playing.
Yeah. You got to think about it too. Like, teams didn't have to throw the ball against the Jets. I know the Jets had a good defense last year, but it's not like, the Jets were scoring at will, so they had to keep up. If you have Aaron Rodgers actually, giving this team 25 points a game and being a legit scoring threat, teams are going to think, oh, we have to throw the ball. Then they're going to try and force feed their best guy, and that's when Sauce Gardner is going to show up. So if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, you're absolutely right. That can, play a big factor into it. But when talking about, you wished I had a different guy, I think for this next position we will. But if we don't, then we're just,
let's get into it.
Safety. Let's hear you first because I've been going first these past few times.
You continue the trend because I like coming in second with that close.
All right. Mine is a guy that's just been on the come up since he's been in the NFL, and I think he's finally reached that, top dog status at his position. I have Antoine Winfield Jr., who just got paid this offseason. He was, I believe, PFF's top safety in the NFL this year. If not, he was top 3. And I know PFF isn't everything, and they kind of grade weird, but I just think Antoine Winfield does it all. He had a great Super Bowl. Obviously, that iconic, peace sign in Tyreek's face that kind of got that banned pretty much. But I think Antoine Winfield, and I was leaning also towards Minkah Fitzpatrick just because of how he operates on that Steelers defense. That trade probably was the best thing for Minkah in his career because he was kind of going down the drain in Miami, and that team just wasn't good when he was traded. So he quickly became one of the top safeties in football and one of the top defensive players in football in Pittsburgh. So he's a close second for me. But right now, I'd pick Antoine Winfield. Call me crazy.
I would too pick Antoine Winfield, just because he's a little bit younger than Minkah, and he's obviously shown he can lead this defense. He put out the league on notice his rookie season, leading them to that Super Bowl. It was a big reason. Gave Tyreek Hill the peace sign. He's kind of a do-it-all. He can lay out a big hit, make a ball-hawking interception play. So it's a shame. For me, though, it was either him or Minkah. I think you can go two different ways because Minkah also is great at that. He always makes a play when you need it. I feel like he's due for at least 1 or 2 pick sixes a year. And he just can lay out some booms. Like I remember, even though it was a couple seasons ago, he still does this, but just that 2020 Steelers team that was winning every game by a close margin, I feel like it'd come down to a goal line stop and Minkah would just lay the boom on like a hit and the receiver would drop it or something. So for me, it's kind of 1A, 1B. You could go either way. But for me, I'm just going to stick with my Minnesota bias since Antoine Winfield did come out of the University of Minnesota and say Antoine Winfield, but Minkah is right up there. And it's a credit to Minkah because Minkah has been up there for best safety in football talks. For the past 5 years now in the way, because maybe that's why some people go with Minkah, just longevity, because when you think about it, just a couple of years ago, it was between him, Justin Simmons, who I don't even believe is on a team right now, and got released by the Broncos, and guys like Tyrann Mathieu have kind of faded in and out. And Minkah Fitzpatrick has been amongst the guys just to stay up there. Hasn't had the injuries like a Derwin James throughout his career. So you're right. It's for me, it's a 1A, 1B. You can't go wrong with either, though. I just like Antoine Winfield, just a little bit younger still, but Minkah has done it for longer. So that there's an argument for both ways. I'm not really mad at either one, though.
Quickly, speaking of the Broncos, just because we're not going to talk about any other players on this. Maybe their punter, or maybe for you, he's not even on my list. But I do want to give out a shout out to Pat Surtain. I think if he was on any other football team, he would probably be my top corner because he's so good. But that Broncos team is so bad. So just he just gets no recognition. And I know trade rumors are constantly floating around him. Just because that team's bad and, he's kind of just dying out there career-wise. So if a team could trade for him, one of these top teams who have what it takes to trade for a guy like Pat Surtain, I think he could easily be the best cornerback in the league. Just like I said, being on the Broncos is never going to help your case.
Yeah. No, it's true too. And then
now
move into the most important position, or kind of his kicker. If you need a game-winning kick, Nick, I'm curious where you went with this one because we may have a different answer.
Okay, we might have a different answer, but every time we've said that, I think we've had the same answer. So
I think we're going different here. I'm just hoping, just don't take my guy.
Well, as long as your guy isn't Brandon Aubrey, then we're taking a different guy because I know Justin Tucker's been, Justin Tucker is probably the greatest kicker of all time. We'll get that out of the way. It's him or Adam Vinatieri, but look, statistic-wise, Justin Tucker is like 90+% field goal, which is just crazy with how long his career's been. But Brandon Aubrey going into 2024, after 2023, where he missed, I believe, 1 field goal, he was like 34 for 35, which is crazy. I have to give him the best kicker. I feel like I don't know if I saw that miss, but I feel like every single time I watched him make a kick, whether it was a big kick in the first quarter, he made it. And he can make it from any distance because he was like a rugby player, I think, because he was a rookie last year, and he was all pro. I want to say he's from like Australia.
Yeah.
He was either a rugby or a soccer player, but he's got a huge leg, comes up in the clutch. That's my pick.
You nailed it right there. That was a historic season. But, I'm not going to go there because for me, kicker is someone I can trust in the playoffs. And not that Brandon Aubrey, didn't do that. I mean, he didn't get the chance because they got blown out by the Packers. Yeah. But I'm going to go with a guy. I shouldn't say he's my guy because he's very controversial from this offseason. But this guy makes big kick after big kick when you need it most. And he just delivers every time, whether you agree, disagree with his political opinions. I don't really care. But whenever the Chiefs have needed this man to make a kick, playoff game against Buffalo, 50 yards out, Super Bowl kick, even if it's like a 35-yarder, just ask Blair Walsh, he'd shit his pants. Give me I got Justin Tucker, really great kicker as well. Kind of regressed a little bit last year, but that's whatever. But in the playoffs, I am trusting Harrison Butker to make. He hasn't proven anyone wrong that he'll miss a kick. So I got to give some credit where he deserves because he may not have the highest field goal percentage or whatever, but he is clutch.
He shows up. Every time, the Chiefs have been either down or the game's tied in one of their playoff games, I always am thinking maybe he'll miss. He never misses. It's right down the plate every single time.
Always. Thinking against Buffalo in divisional round, I think he'll miss. Nope. 49ers, can they block it or will he whiff? No. This dude is straight up butter when it matters most. And that's why I look for in a kicker. Like I said, is it nice if he could hit, like the week? I mean, even then he's still very accurate, but, do I care more about, a week 3 60-yarder or a playoff game, season is on the line, 49-yarder? Can you bury it? He will always make it. And, like I said, he's made the news this summer, for controversial stuff. But, at the end of the day, this is football, ladies and gentlemen. And that guy, Harrison Butker, don't miss when it matters. So shout out Harrison Butker. I think been a little bit maybe more of the underappreciated part of why the Chiefs are a dynasty because he's made some huge kicks in their road to get there.
You're absolutely. I mean, even in the games they've lost, like I just right when you said that, my mind went back to the 2018 AFC Championship against the Patriots, where they had like a 10-second drive and Patrick Mahomes got them right in field goal range, forced overtime. He made a huge kick, forced overtime, and then they just didn't get the ball. But
and then they
won them the Super Bowl. Yeah, won them the Super Bowl.
They had to tie it last Super Bowl too, and just the year against Buffalo, similar situation, 10 seconds. It's a huge credit to Patrick Mahomes to even get him into field goal range. But these are not chip shots; they're outdoors, tough environment, and he just nails them. So. I look for clutch factor and kickers the most, and so I got to respect Harrison for that. Harrison Butker will be my kicker, top kicker.
Could be one of the best playoff kickers of all time if we're talking. Adam Vinatieri. Obviously, you got to put him up there. Justin Tucker, maybe.
Gostkowski at the Patriots.
He could be up there too. He missed maybe one big kick that I can remember. But
and then. Now we head into the final position, punter. Nick, you want to?
Okay, yeah. Very, this position gets overlooked a lot just because there's nothing flashy about it. But having a good punter can mean all the difference in how your team performs on, offense or on defense. Are you going to punt it from here? Do you trust your defense to make the stop? And I'm going to go Harrison Butker's special teams, sidekick, teammate, whatever you want to call him, Tommy Townsend. I think he's got a boomer for a leg. He's got obviously, there's not like a ton of statistics to talk about when it comes to punters other than inside the 40s, punts
inside
over
20 or 10,
inside the 20, sorry. But it just seems like Tommy Townsend's always up there for, top punter in the league. And when you're on the Super Bowl winning team where special teams is always a huge factor that doesn't really get talked about, he's been, a very solid, underrated piece, I'll call it, on that team.
He has, and he's been really good. I'm going to go with a guy, though, that I think just 2 seasons ago had one of the highest net averages of all time, Ryan Stonehouse of the Tennessee Titans. Titans, with Ryan Tannehill, were punting the ball a lot. Now they're kind of entering a new era, but Ryan Stonehouse has always been really solid. Like I said, there isn't much statistical, but I believe 2022, 2023 season, he averaged like 53 yards net average, which is really insane. Yeah. And he's still just really solid. So I'm going to go with Ryan Stonehouse to end my list. And now that brings us to our final list here. So as always, we're curious to get your guys' positions. Let us know in the comments whose list you like better or what you disagree with. Did we miss something, somewhere along the lines like at, linebacker, safety, cute cornerback? We're always curious to get your guys' thoughts. But let us know in the comments what you guys think of this list. Top players at each position entering this upcoming season. We'd love to, debate in the comments. But with that being said, as always, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. Enjoy the weekend, y'all. Peace out.